Hello and welcome back to Bookish and welcome back to Saturday Hodgepodge, my weekly wrap-up of reading, book stuff, other stuff I want to talk about. This week I'm kind of, just all over the place, so I thought I would start off by talking about my weekly reads. I'm so confused and disorganized, by the way. I made a list on my phone of things I want to talk about, but I just looked at it and realized I don't have anything in order, which probably gives you some idea of how my brain works. But anyway, I want to start off with weekly reading. I finished 2 books this week. I started rereading a book this week, and I'm about halfway or more than halfway finished with a 3rd book this week, which means I've been having a really good reading month so far. Going into things, you may remember that I, for whatever reason in my own mind, decided to make April my First Nations reading month. So all the books I'm reading this month were written by First Nations people, whether they're Canadian, Americans, where they live in Canada, I should say, or live in the United States of America, or live in Australia. I'm doing First Nations reading, and that's gone really well. I finished In My Own Moccasins, a memoir of resilience by Helen Knott. And I read a piece of the introduction to that in which I thought she brilliantly encapsulated what it means, when a writer writes something for a group of people and not necessarily for others. She makes it clear that she's writing this book, she's writing this memoir for First Nations women who, if you don't know, are far more likely to be the victims of sexual violence, murder, and then just what's referred to as disappearing than any other group of women in Canada or the United States. I don't know if this is true of Australia or not, but she is a Canadian, or she lives in Canada and is writing about her experience there. And in this case, that idea that she's writing for those people and not necessarily for me really comes through. And she makes it clear that, people like me who are not First Nations women or First Nations people can certainly learn from her book, and I did. But when she says she's writing it for this specific group of people, this isn't to exclude others, it's to emphasize why she's writing this book. So I'll be honest with you, and I've said this before, I don't really like memoirs. I find most memoirs to be a little bit, I don't know if the word is cloying or self-aggrandizing or preachy, or hey, look at me, or look how great I am and how strong I am. This memoir probably did more to change my mind about memoirs in general than anything else, because it is clear that this memoir, writing this memoir, cost Helen Knott a great deal. It was an incredibly painful experience to write this book, but that she was motivated to write this book to be a voice to First Nations women in Canada and the United States, to be a source of, hey, look, I went through this too, to be a source of strength, to connect spiritually to her First Nations people and to others, and to kind of offer her story as an example or as a source of strength for others. And so I was just really impressed with the memoir on that level. And if you're interested in that kind of thing, I would highly encourage you to read it. I also finished Nonfiction by Leanne Betasasomsake, Simpson. This is an incredibly creative, unique book written from the Anishinaabe perspective, incorporating Anishinaabe words and not necessarily translating them, and creating kind of an incredible reading experience on all kinds of levels. I am not probably equipped to review this book as well as other people have, but I will just say that there is a connection between one of the things that jumped out to me is not just the beauty of the images, the beauty of the writing, the uniqueness of the organization, and I'm going to let you figure that out or watch some other reviews, which I'll mention here in a minute, but the ability of the author to connect across generations, to offer incredibly neat views into the experience of First Nations people. And again, the author here lives in Canada, but First Nations people in Canada, whether they live on the reservation or they live in urban environments, to kind of connect their spiritual lives to across generations to nature, and then but also to incorporate kind of, or to explain kind of the way in which these people have adapted or adopted things from modern society, from modern Western culture, to help them with their survival and their success, which is really extraordinary. It is a unique book, and this is the book I'm rereading. I finished it, and I immediately started rereading it. I am rereading it much more slowly this time than I did the first time, and enjoying it just as much. If you're interested in this book, I would recommend going to two places, and I'll leave links down below. Let's see. Thunderbird Woman Reads did an incredibly great review of this, which I think really gives you the First Nations point of view on this. By the way, you can also find interviews with the author online, some in depth, in which she talks about the book. But also then our own Marc Nash did a review of the book, which I think probably does a better job of breaking it down from the perspective of someone like me than I'm going to do. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I'll leave links to Thunderbird Woman Reads review down below, and to Marc Nash's review down below. I also started reading Our History is the Future by Nick Estes. This is essentially a book connecting the resistance to the Dakota pipeline being built through the Dakota Territory and across what the reservations belonging to First Nations people in the Dakota areas, connecting that to the history of resistance among the Dakota people, and I'm leaving some out there, and others. And its title, Our History is the Future, is connecting this resistance going on to the Dakota Access Pipeline, or that went on with the Dakota Access Pipeline, to resistance of those First Nations people throughout history. It is a good history, a great history, a very powerful look from the inside of a First Nations group of people at how they view the action of the United States. I am learning a tremendous amount, particularly just about how the construction of dams and the flooding of land by the Army Corps of Engineers in the early to mid 20th centuries really devastated the First Nations people on these reservations. It was just another example, really, of callousness of the United States government and the American people towards the plight of First Nations people in those places. This is the kind of book that when I read it, I go, this is why we should read diversely. We should get the points of view of other people. We should, because it provides you with an understanding of things. It really has really opened my mind about a lot of actions the United States government has taken, which, on the surface, from my point of view, I would have thought, well, building hydroelectric dams is a great thing. It provides jobs, it creates hydroelectric power, it helps with electrification in rural areas. Isn't that a good thing? And that's because I'm looking at it from a capitalist, as the author would say, a colonialist point of view. And I'm not taking into account the impact that it had on the First Nations people. The book is really eye-opening for that. I'm about 90 pages from the end. I'm hoping to finish sometime this weekend. Anyway, those are my reads. That's my reading for this week. Also, just wanted to mention one more time, talk just briefly about the Ken Burns Hemingway video. I'm not going to apologize anymore for being a fan of Hemingway's writing, and I watched, of course, the Ken Burns 3-part video, which I think comes out to be something like 6 hours about Ernest Hemingway. And I will tell you that, and what I just wanted to mention here is that my favorite part of it, what I think is easily the best part, are interviews that Burns or one of his associates did with various authors. They're authors who speak about Hemingway, his work and his life. Tobias Wolff is one of them. He provides some really great insights, but my favorite two authors who speak about Hemingway's work in those movies are Edna O'Brien, the Irish author, and then Mario Vargas Llosa, the Peruvian author. And I really enjoy their different perspectives on Hemingway. I thought O'Brien's statements about Hemingway and misogyny were really eye-opening. I loved that Losa thinks that For Whom the Bell Tolls is one of Hemingway's worst books. I happen to think it's one of his best novels, and he laughs about the descriptions of sex scenes in the book, which I have to admit, in today's world, do seem really out of step. I like that O'Brien doesn't think very highly of The Old Man and the Sea, and Losa did. I like that interplay. They don't have them there together, but I like the difference in point of views on Hemingway and his work that you get from those various authors. So again, if you have an interest, I think you probably can still watch it online, maybe through PBS. I'm not positive about that, but I did think it was good, and that part particularly provided some real insight. I also was realizing this week, probably because I'm coming up on the 1 year since my retirement, that I have a little bit of the retirement blues. I do miss teaching a little bit, in part because I see things where I could have taught better, taught more, taught more creatively. This is not going to be enough to drive me back to the classroom, I promise you that. But I think when you're a teacher, you know when you're done, and like I think I probably said, I knew I was done. But I do miss that a little bit. But I found a cure for it. I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but my house sits behind a park, and on one end of that park there is the junior high school for the community where I live. And so what I've taken to doing is I go out in the morning and sit on the back porch right around the time that school starts, and I can hear the kids going into the building, and I can hear the bells ringing, changing class, and I can see the line of cars and all the people and all the hustle and bustle that goes on around a school at the beginning of the day. And then I go back out in the afternoon at the end of the day, and I hear the kids, walking home behind the wall behind my yard, and that's pretty much enough. By the way, sorry, all day long I can hear the bells ring, and I can actually hear announcements. So I know what buses are picking up at what time over there. That's how close to the junior high I live. So I kind of found that to be a good cure for retirement blues. I can listen to those kids talk for just a few minutes ago. No, I don't want to go back to anything like that. I also want to do a bunch of shout-outs, or a few shout-outs for channels and videos. So if you haven't been to the channel Attention, the creator over there's name is Pei, and Pei has a great tag. Does great videos, but I really enjoyed his tag about tags. So I'll leave a link to that down below, even though, as one of the commenters on my channel pointed out, last weekend, I think because Pei does such a great job with tags, I think he got tagged like 4 or 5 times last weekend by me as well, because we all want to see those tags. If you haven't gone to that channel and watched the videos over at Attention, then please do. Also, I was watching Christy Louis from Dostoyevsky in Space was doing a video, and she just kind of casually mentioned in like incredibly quickly that she'd had a story published, and she did leave a link to the story, which she hid where old guys like me wouldn't notice it in the show notes. But I just want to, if you know Christy, if you've been to her channel, if you haven't, you shouldn't. Then you should know. We should congratulate her on getting published, on being published. So I will leave a link to her video and perhaps a link directly to her story so you can read it. I read it and I liked it a lot. Also wanted to give a shout out to Jen the Librarian. Jen the Librarian, a British booktuber who is in fact a librarian. She and I read from the same nonfiction group. Nonfiction Group D for the, yikes. Nonfiction Group D for the octafinals. Sorry, I almost made it through without the dogs barking. Anyway, Jen's video, which she talks about how she ranked the book, she reviews the book, I just thought was great. I'll leave a link to it down below. And what I really liked about it, one of the things I think is really great about the Booktube Prize is that it allows readers who are very different to read the same books, and hopefully people post those videos and you get to see what other people thought and kind of exchange ideas or kind of get an understanding of how they came to their rankings. One of the things I thought was greatest about this is that I think Jen and I agreed almost exclusively, with maybe say for one book, our criticisms of the books were almost identical. whether it was Red Comet or Black Spartacus, or We Keep the Dead Close. I think the only book we really disagreed about was Rebecca Solnit's, oh shoot, now I've forgotten the name. I think the only book we really disagreed about was Rebecca Solnit's memoir. That's the only one where our criticisms were very different, and yet we rank the books very differently. It's just one of those kind of fascinating things, I think, to kind of recognize what somebody else is saying, and yet still, not necessarily agree about rankings, which, kind of brought up, or kind of made me think about, when people talk about objectivity or subjectivity in book reviewing. I think that what Jen and I's reaction to most of the books proved is that there are objective standards that we apply to books as readers. And yet, despite our objective standards, if we're forced to rank things, perhaps that's when subjectivity comes in a little bit more. The things that bothered me on a personal level a little bit caused me to rank some books lower, and the same for Jen. So anyway, link to her video down below. I think that's it. This is a confused and only once dog interrupted Saturday Hodgepodge. Yeah, I look forward to your comments in the comment section below. As always, thank you for watching.